Hello, my name is Monique Musiel, and I'm the author of An Understanding Beyond, which can be read on Amazon.com. Today I'd like to talk about questionable influences. Of all the negative influences we really need to watch out for most is people that try to lead us astray spiritually. Jesus warns, with numerous Bible quotes, about people deceiving you. Keep away from them because they are not serving our Lord, but their own appetites. With smooth talk and flattery, they deceive minds of naive people. In Matthew 7:15, it's written, "Beware of false prophets, who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves." In Matthew 24:24, "For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect." There really is no compromising with false teachers, and there is no close enough for who perverts God's message, because they're not working for God if they're doing that. To address Jesus' warnings about false teachers, protect yourself in these ways. Study the Bible and compare to Scripture to counter false teachings, and also pray for spiritual discernment. False teachers will distort truth for personal gain. They use persuasive tactics to deceive you. I've had people tell me some really strange beliefs that have no support anywhere in the Bible, and they're completely contrary to the absolute truth that Jesus spoke. I know a well-intentioned woman that's very godly, and she insists that her pastor's teachings are true. She's been listening for years to this false recordings of his, and she's convinced that he's right. What he says, what he's taught her, is completely contradictory to the Bible. Here are some examples of how he's brainwashed her. She thinks that the rapture will remove the evil people. Instead of the angels rescuing God's people, that would mean that God's faithful would suffer the horrible tribulation. Not only is it completely wrong, it's, if you look this up in the Bible, and it makes no sense whatsoever either. So, okay. And another thing she believes is that we are forbidden to eat certain meats, which in the Old Testament was a rule then, but Peter's vision from God removed that limit, the disciple Peter. In Acts 10:9-16, Peter's vision: "About noon the following day, as they were on their journey and approaching the city, Peter went up on the roof to pray. He became hungry and wanted something to eat, and while the meal was being prepared, he fell into a trance. He saw heaven opened and something like a large sheet being let down to earth by its four corners. It contained all kinds of four-footed animals, as well as reptiles and birds. Then a voice told him, 'Get up, Peter, kill and eat.' 'Surely not, Lord,' Peter replied. 'I have never eaten anything impure or unclean.' The voice spoke to him a second time, 'Do not call anything impure that God has made clean.' This happened 3 times, and immediately the sheet was taken back to heaven." When I read this to her, She exclaimed, "What Bible? What did you read this in?" Uh, the real one? I realized she didn't know the real truth of the Bible at that point. After several discussions that I got nowhere with her because she's a very strong-spirited woman, um, I told her, even though we have our differences about the details, the most important thing is that we both believe we're saved through Jesus' forgiveness so that we can look forward to being in heaven with God someday. So, you know, this even though this false teacher has tainted her mind, and he has her thinking that he knows better than what's in the Bible. But if any teacher speaks contrary to what's in the Bible, it's the great deceiver talking through them. Another friend of ours, we were shocked to find, we hadn't seen him for years, that he is now in some cult where an individual does an acid trip with the rest of the group all around. They call this a ceremony of awakenings and revelations, and rely on their own judgment of how they feel to tell them if something is right or wrong. That concept is actually a careless way to go about decisions because it warns in Proverbs 2:12, "Every person's way is right in his own eyes, but the Lord examines the heart." So in other words, he knows what's going on inside. You can't fool him. We're actually more easily influenced by the type of people we hang around with than we think. For example, if our friends are drug addicts, what they do might rub off on us if we think we'd like to join in on the fun that we think they're having. But there is a danger in this besides ODing or becoming addicted. Do we realize how vulnerable we humans are when we don't have our senses about us anymore to resist evil spirits from taking us over? I know someone who has multiple personalities, who each have a name, and one of them is dangerous. He threatens his mother that he's going to kill her, and 2 seconds later he says, "I love you, Mom." So that's two completely different people. Doctors call it schizophrenia, and they'll insist that there are physical and chemical reasons for this. But what if it's so much more than that? Demons can possess humans who don't have Christ dwelling in them, especially when their will for sound decisions has been compromised. This is a real thing, an encounter Jesus had with a possessed man in the biblical account of Legion, in which Jesus heals a man with demons. And beginning with, "They came to the other side of the sea and to the country of the Gerasenes," hard to pronounce. "And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him any more, not even with a chain, for he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but he wrenched the chains apart and broke the shackles in pieces." An aside on that, somebody who has demons in them is going to be very powerful, very strong. No one had the strength, going back to the quote, to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs, and on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him. And crying out with a loud voice, he said, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." For he, Jesus that is, was saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now a great herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they, Legion that is, begged him, saying, "Send us to the pigs, let us enter them." So he gave them permission, and the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs. And the herd, numbered about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the sea. The herdsmen fled and told it in the city and the country, and people came to see what it was that had happened. And they came to Jesus and saw the demon-possessed man, the one who had had the legion, sitting there clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Let's talk about media influences. So many wrong ideas can creep in that way. The following quote is from the Bible, but there's a lot of truth in it. The quote is, "Your eyes are the windows to your soul, so be careful what you let into them." For example, I didn't let my children watch horror movies. Because these evil images are recorded in our memories, and they create fears and nightmares. Especially since we're so vulnerable and helpless while we're dead asleep. In movies and in videos, there is much violence and smut, much too readily available nowadays to pollute ourselves with harmful influences. Another example, as much as I love rock music, I was even in a band for 5 years as their drummer. As much as I love rock music, it's very disturbing to me that some bands promote evil ideas. I used to listen to dark-themed bands like Black Sabbath and Alice Cooper before I was saved at age 21. I'm not going to mince words. Blue Oyster Cult promotes suicide and Don't Fear the Reaper. AC/DC tells us they're on a highway to hell, as if that's a cool thing. Apparently, they don't have a clue what they're in for there. It won't be fun and partying. I can assure you that. Rap music is often loaded with perverted lyrics. If we listen to the worst of those, we can easily get jaded into thinking that it's normal or okay. Another saying is, garbage in, garbage out. We're likely to spew out what we've taken in. In Luke 6:45, the good man brings good things out of the good treasure of his heart, and the evil man brings evil things out of the evil treasure of his heart. For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So what you feel inside, the attitude you have, everything it's going to come out in what you say. In Luke 6:43-44, no good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit, for each tree is known by its own fruit. Indeed, figs are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor grapes from brambles. So, if I'm going to wrap this up, what do we want to be remembered for and known for? Quality individuals that God can be proud of, hopefully. We can work on that, avoiding experiences that taint character, focusing on positive practices reinforced by our actions, making wise choices, treating people with care and kindness, and helping others in need. Luke 22:24-27 makes this point. A dispute also arose among them, the disciples that is, as to which of them was considered to be greatest. Jesus said to them, "The kings of the Gentiles lord over them, and those who exercise authority over them call themselves benefactors. But you are not to be like that. Instead, the greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who is at the It is not the one who is at the table, but I am among you as one who serves." Jesus is making a point here that he who serves others most is actually the greatest. Rather than the one who is rich or in power or famous, I thank heaven for humanitarian people who live by this philosophy. The world is a better place because of their compassion and service. Thank you for listening today. If you want to see any of my other podcasts, just look up my name, Monique Musiel. And again, you can also check out my book at Amazon.com. And I hope you listen to some of my other podcasts, because I put a tremendous amount of work into the research of these, because I really want to help people to understand God better. That's why my book is called An Understanding Beyond what we normally see every day, beyond what we understand in our physical state. So, again, another time, God bless you. Good night. Or good day, whatever.